everyone, this is Adam from Recreation Services, and I'm back again today to talk about another old school exercise, the straight leg sit-up. So today I'm going to be talking about how to do a straight leg sit-up, and then we'll talk about the benefits, the risks, and potentially some alternatives that may or may not even be better. So the straight leg sit-up by name is very descriptive. So if you haven't seen it already, you can probably figure it out. So we're going to start by laying on the floor here, perfectly flat, straight legs. Hand position can either be across the chest or up in front of you like a zombie. From here, you're sitting up into an upright position, but not any further. So if we do the zombie kind of arm here, we're going to go up to upright, stop here, so no need to go, to a toe touch from here. Back down. If you want to do arms across the chest, same thing, up to vertical, back down, something like that. So what's the deal with this exercise? Good or no? What are the risks? What are the benefits? We'll start with the good. The benefits of the straight leg exercise is that it provides you with a little bit of a mechanical advantage that helps with your balance. So because I'm lying here with straight legs and I'm fully extended, I have more of my weight towards my feet rather than having bent legs or something where it's mostly, most of the weight is around where my hips are, which is very close to my axis of rotation for this movement. Having my weight further away from my axis of rotation, closer to my feet, kind of acts as an anchor. So it saves me from needing something to anchor my feet to do a full sit-up, and it allows me to get all the way up without that balance challenge of falling backwards too. So it really helps with balance and anchoring, makes you a little more stable. And because of this, it can be a lot easier if you're not quite strong enough or you're a little inexperienced and you're having trouble doing, a standard or a bent leg sit-up or a full sit-up. A little easier that way in terms of balance and stability. However, it does come with some risks that we also should cover here. The primary risks for a straight leg sit-up is due to the activation of the hip flexors. So when I'm doing a straight leg sit-up, I have to activate my hip flexors to get the rest of the way up. So even if I start with a curl, once my shoulders are off the ground, I'm starting to use my hip flexors to get the rest of my trunk off the ground. When I activate the hip flexors, because my hip flexors attach at my lumbar spine, that can lead to hyperextension, which increases your risk of injury. You also get increased compressive forces on your lumbar spine, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Your lumbar spine is built to handle compressive forces. That's what it does. However, that's assuming that you're in a neutral position. So if your hip flexors put you into a hyperextended position and add compression, that's not a safe position to be in. That's very dangerous for your intervertebral discs, and it's not how they're meant to handle compressive force. They're in a compromised position at that point. This also can lead to a pelvic tilt, which will then exaggerate that hyperextension, put you in even more of a risk. And because these hip flexors are working so hard, they actually become the primary mover for most of the exercise. So you're not even really isolating the rectus abdominis as much, which is the primary goal of doing sit-ups to begin with. So you're doing a lot of the movement using a muscle that you're not even really trying to work. From there, your hips just get more and more tight, which a lot of people suffer from anyway, leading to more and more hip tightness. So what's the alternative, or some alternatives? So the most intuitive alternative would be a bent leg sit-up. So we're gonna talk about that a little bit, and because depending on how you do this bent leg sit-up, you could still have a lot of the same risks you get from the straight leg sit-up. So from the bent leg sit-up, you're gonna start from the floor here, but now you have bent legs, so either feet flat on the floor, sometimes it's heels, something like that. Hand position is very important here. The big thing is that you don't have your hands behind your neck. What ends up happening here is you start pulling on the back of your head and putting a lot of strain on the back of your neck. So to avoid that, I like to go hands across the shoulders. Some people also do fingers on the temples, because you're not really pulling on your head from here. Something like that. For range of motion, a lot of times people will come up, all the way vertical, maybe touching the elbows to the knees, something like that. The issue with this is that with my feet on the floor, whether I'm anchored or not, especially if I'm coming to this full range of motion, I'm still using my hip flexors, which still can lead to hyperextension of the back, especially at the bottom of the range of motion. And again, just becoming the primary mover again and just overworking those hip flexors rather than my rectus abdominis. So the best way to do that, to take away the hip flexors, is to A, reduce the range of motion, and B, elevate the feet. So an alternative to that, if you want to do feet on the floor with a reduced range of motion, you could do that. But for this, we're really just thinking about shortening the distance from the sternum to the belly button. So really, I'm trying to do that kind of movement there. I can feel that in my rectus abdominis already. I don't have to go any higher than that. So I can just do a partial curl up from here. The other way to make sure you take the hips up is to elevate the feet. So you can have your feet just up on a chair, or even just kind of sitting here, some people cross the knees, any of that's fine. But the range of motion is still the same. So this would be a partial curl up, just gonna be here. Really just trying to get the shoulders off the ground, maybe to your mid-back, but your lower back should stay firm on the floor, not arching, so it should be relatively flat to the floor. And that's the best way to reduce all the risks, so you don't get the tension on the back of the knee or the back of the neck, and you don't activate the hips to put the pressure on your low back. And then that creates an exercise where your rectus abdominis is your primary mover, which is the whole point of this anyway. A lot of people even try and avoid sit-ups altogether these days, just to avoid any of those risks, especially the tightening of the hips and the pressure on the low back and stuff like that. So if you would prefer to do other exercises in general, planks and loaded carries and things like that, that's all good too. The key is to find an exercise where you are isolating your rectus abdominis and not compensating and doing most of the work with your hips, and then lead to tighter hips and put increased strain on your low back. So I hope that helps. Take that into your next core workout, and hopefully you can get those abs in time for summer. Good luck.